Right, it's part 3 of our week 2 previews, and we have the other parts for anyone listening on podcast after the fact. We have it broken up across 4 segments. We have the 6 o'clock games, I should say, broken into 2 segments. We're going to concentrate on the later games now on Sunday night, starting with Brian. Giants at Cardinals. Giants start the season at 0. They start week 2 at 0, still yet to score their first points of the new season, but not the worst place to go and do it in Arizona with everything that's going on or not going on there.
2 teams that haven't scored a touchdown between them this season. You know, for all the play about Cardinals and putting up a tough fight in Washington last weekend, didn't pick up an offensive touchdown. They did score a touchdown defensively. I think this is one that's like we were touching on. What's the nice game you get in week 2 after a bad defeat? But everything that could go wrong for the Giants in week 1. In fact, I'd say last week more went wrong in that game than anything that transpired throughout the course of last season. Like Giants lost some tough games last year, and even in the blowout defeat to the Eagles in the playoffs, it was very evident that we just weren't at the level. I'm not saying we're at the level of the Cowboys yet, but things spiraled very quickly last weekend, which was a bit of a concern because Brian Dable has shown when things were against him last year, he quickly found ways to navigate that and get things back on track. Didn't materialise, but he called out a number of times this week that he didn't seem prepared for it. The coaching staff didn't prepare properly, miscommunication, leading to timeouts. Everything that could go wrong went wrong. You just find it very difficult to see that Brian Dable would have 2 really bad coaching games, and both his defensive and his offense quarter would have bad coaching games again. And they're going up against, with all due respect, Joshua Dobbs. And I think the Giants defense last weekend it sounds like they didn't play very well, but they didn't have a difficult game because they did hold Prescott in check for large parts as well. But I think the Giants are in a good position to rebound. I think we get away from last week's game. These things happen week 1, we move on. It still stings. It stings for every Giants fan this week to get beaten by the Cowboys in the manner in which they did, but the Cardinals are there for a reason in terms of why people think they're tanking. I think the Giants win on Sunday.
Yeah, I think so too. If you are who the Giants are and who we think they are, and you have the ambition that they have and you want to build on last season, then you just got to go and take care of business on this one. Colin, for you, Giants heading to the desert to find themselves. Did they come back having rediscovered what they showed us last year, or does this show up sophomore season blues for Brian Dable?
Well, I love Mr. O'Leary channeling Bill Belichick. We're on to Cleveland. Oh, we're on from week 1. Connor, I don't know if you've seen it. I wonder if Brian O'Leary has a great movie, very underrated, called A Very Long Engagement, all about a woman's kind of search for her fiance who goes missing during the Battle of the Somme. I have a very long engagement for both of these teams because ultimately the Cardinals are waiting. We know that that they intend to draft a QB in next year's draft, and I have made my feelings on Daniel Jones quite clear. But that said, the Giants should get the win here, and if they don't, then they would be kind of like real questions as to what went on during the off season. But the Cardinals are they were feistier than we anticipated. But look, the Giants have really nice pieces on defense, and offensively they should have enough to do this.
I have to say, unfortunately, I haven't seen a very long engagement yet. You have me there. I've seen every other one that you've dropped of the war film metaphors or war film comparisons so far this week. That's the first one. It's a miss for me.
He's saying very long engagement. It's a very long trip because the Giants aren't returning to the East Coast for quite some time because they play in Santa Clara on Thursday night. So they're navigating a trip out West Coast and staying out there and then moving on to Santa Clara. So that's why they have to win this game, because Colin was saying if they don't win and they go 0-2, well, they've got the Niners home opener on Thursday night. Let's be fair, we all know how that's going to play out.
Yeah, that's no fun. It's to the Niners we go next. They're on the road. Of course, they're not in Santa Clara this weekend. They're playing the Rams. It's a divisional game. 49ers came out of the blocks flying last week and put a beatdown on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Rams surprised a lot of people. Got a great performance from a rookie wide receiver and Puka Nacua on the way to a victory in week 1. I can't see an outcome other than the 49ers winning, Brian, unless you tell me something different.
The Niners have beaten the Rams 8 times in a row regular season. There's one exception to that. Obviously, that's that playoff defeat in the championship game a couple of years ago. But Shanahan has had McVay's number for quite some time. Me and Colin, unfortunately, we've been to SoFi, but we've seen how fantastic the stadium is. It's great to go to. It's a great experience. But ultimately, they don't have any fans. That sounds a bit terrible, but that's the biggest difficulty that the Rams and Chargers are dealing with. They can't entice people to come in, committed week in, week out. We see time and time again, teams are going in there, and the home team are playing with a siding count. And McVay referred to that in terms of last year's games and the previous season. This place is going to be packed out with 49ers fans on Sunday. This is like a home game before the real home game on Thursday night. And they're even going to wear their red jersey. They've even been allowed to wear their home jersey in this game as opposed to their road jersey. I can't see anything than another comprehensive 49ers win. And if it does happen and they comprehensively win on Wednesday, we're going to find ourselves in similar positions to last year where we're talking about teams definitely going to the Super Bowl. And maybe that doesn't obviously materialize, but this 49ers team are for real.
Colin, is it home comfort even though they're on the road for the 49ers, or can McVay find a way?
Well, this is flags of our fathers for me, because ultimately both of these are out of the Shanahan tree, and that's Mike Shanahan, which is ultimately out of the Bill Walsh tree. They're cut from the same cloth. Alicia in the comments hinted earlier at the feistiness and the spiciness that goes on there. They're like I suppose stepbrothers in that they kind of go at one another because they know each other so well, but
Brian has definitely seen Step Brothers, by the way, whether that was a movie reference or not.
The 49ers will have too much. McVay, is probably re-energized in many ways with the youngsters and his ability to I suppose craft them. And Matthew Stafford looked really good last week, but going up against this 49ers team who are still healthy, I just think this will be the 49ers, but expect maybe some interesting kind of plays from McVay.
Right, Jets Cowboys up next. I gotta say, I had slightly more trouble calling a winner in this one than I thought I might. I know a lot of people are saying absolute slam dunk for the Cowboys. I think there's something of a cause now with the Jets. I like the way Salah has kind of rallied the troops after what happened on Monday, and not forgetting the fact that they did find a way to win that game. I still don't think they're necessarily coming out of Dallas or coming out of the Arlington Stadium with the win against the Cowboys, but I think they're going to make it a little bit more difficult than a lot of people perhaps might expect based on what happened last week. Brian, is that a foolish idea from me? Ultimately, I'm predicting the Cowboys to win, but I think the Jets will make it difficult for them.
It's foolish if you think that Zach Wilson has somehow become the answer again, Connor, because let's be fair, this time, middle of last season, Jets have written him off as any potential future opportunity to take this team forward. And like they said all the right things this offseason. They're going to keep him around. He's on the rookie contract. Why wouldn't you? He's the backup quarterback. They never in a million years thought he'd be playing again. And he struggled for large parts of the game on Monday night when he came in. He had one or two nice passes. And obviously we touched on it Monday. I mean, Garrett Wilson intercepted his own touchdown essentially because it was like, it was a poor throw. Zach Wilson, he navigated the victory. He didn't. But for me, in this instance, against the Cowboys defense that we saw on Monday and what they can do against an offensive line that struggles, like, let's not get away from the reason for it as well, that which really didn't get picked up on during the week. Why did the Bills get to Aaron Rodgers twice in the first 4 snaps? They got to it because that Jets offensive line, and Colin rightly called it out leading into the season, was something that was still a concern. I can see this Cowboys team getting to Zach Wilson all day long. I think this is going to be a very difficult day for the Jets. Yeah, maybe our defense can slow the Cowboys down and keep them in the game for maybe 2.5, 3 quarters, but I see the Cowboys pulling away and win this comfortably in the end.
Yeah, that's the thing for me, though. I think that Dak and the Cowboys offense have got to deal with that Jets defense as well. They got, with due respect, no opposition from New York, the other New York team last week, and I think it's going to be a different affair from them. We also know the Cowboys' tendency to be all sizzle and no steak, and we'll see whether they can back up that week 1 win. Colin, for you, is it a Cowboys' comfortable victory, or can the Jets show us anything to slow them down?
It's a bridge too far for the Jets, Connor. Micah Parsons is the best defensive player in the league currently. Bosa got the big contract, but Parsons just takes over games. And the Giants found out he impacted every single play when he was on the field. He may not have gotten all the sacks last week, but watch the sacks. They all came from the fact that the Giants did not know how to handle Parsons. He tried to double team him. That's no good. He finds ways to go inside, outside. He bamboozles. He pushes players into one another. He's a wrecking ball. And as long as he stays fit, the Cowboys will make life hell for opposing QBs. Zach Wilson is the worst quarterback in the league, and I say that as somebody who had the 29th worst quarterback in the league last year. Zach Wilson is terrible, and it's a shame because the Jets have an awful lot of talent on that roster. You've pointed out rightly that the defense is really good. Robert Saleh does a really good job, but they have got to get somebody else in there because Zach Wilson ain't it.
Connor, can I just make a quick point? Sorry.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, sorry. Don't mean to jump in. We spoke at large over the offseason around how Mike McCarthy wanted to run this offense. You'd be more effective in terms of the run game. And obviously he had a big disconnect around how Kellen Moore wanted to play it and be expansive. But this kind of suits them, doesn't it? Like they go into games with a defense that's strong, and Dan Quinn has done such a fantastic job that they can rely on their defense effectively to go and win games. And then you just use your like that was so there and so obvious on Monday. Once they got into a perfect position in terms of a lead through their defense, it allowed them to do exactly what he wanted to do, which is to run the ball throughout the course of it and keep the drives methodically moving and not get into a situation where you're scoring quickly or intercepting the ball because you're going with a Dak Prescott heavy, pass orientated drive. So I think this defense will take the Cowboys as far as they want to go. It's whether in the end we get to a stage where they have to be more expansive with the offense, and can they do it? They've got the players. So this team are getting hyped up already. It's interesting to see how they come on from this game, but certainly a week, which a few weeks ago, when it looked like a really tough game, it'll be tough, but it might not be as difficult as the first thought.
Colin, if ever there was a team that was well suited for a military analogy, it's got to be the Washington Commanders. But I wonder, are you going to be leaning more in the direction of the Broncos? Is Sean Payton like Tom Berenger and Platoon, or have you got something even better cooked up for us? What happens Denver in week 2?
For me, this is the imitation game, Connor, because these are two sad imitations of once former great franchises. And I think I talked last week. I said there was pressure on Sean Payton. He put a target on his back. You started off, you got the chance to change the narrative going up against a Raiders team who you hadn't beaten in more than 1,000 days. But ultimately, you scored 16 points, and your defense couldn't get any pressure. There was no explosive plays. All that said, I think that the Broncos have to win this week because Sean Payton said he was going to be annoyed if the Broncos didn't make the playoffs. I didn't have them making the playoffs, but if they lose this, they are 0-2, having played 2 home games in September, which is traditionally when the Broncos are strongest, at home in September. They have to win. I have them edging it. But if you are not a fan of either of these teams, I don't think this is going to be a classic. This might be one to avoid.
No, I had this one firmly down in the YouTube highlights category, I have to be honest, but I think like you, it's a must-win game already for the Broncos. I think they will do it. Brian, what do you reckon?
I think in a strange way, it's a must-win because week 3 for them is going into Miami, and it's September when the weather will still be quite vibrant and nice in Miami. We see the difficulty which teams have when they go out there. Fangio will obviously have a point to prove, defensive coordinator from his time in Denver. And if I know we're going to come to, but if the Dolphins put up another game, which we saw on Monday, like, will the Broncos be able to deal with them in week 3? So I think the pressure's very much on the Broncos to speak, and I think they will win. I mean, I don't think anybody was overly impressed with the Commanders in terms of how they won that game last weekend. I think everybody felt they would be a bit more comprehensive. Be interesting if Sam Howell gets on his first road game because his 2 games today they've both been at home. So I think the Broncos defense will find a way to slow this Commanders team down. I don't think they're expansive enough to go and win this game. I think John Payton gets off the slide and wins his first game as Broncos head coach.
All right, that brings up third and short for us, because that's for those of us listening on podcast. That's part 3 of our week 2 preview wrapped. You can check out all of the other 3 parts, including the 2 6:00 window game previews, and the late preview, and the Monday and Sunday night games that we're going to wrap up in the 4th part.